Hello and welcome. We're going to be recording another chess video here. So let's look for a game within our normal time control here. And we're about 1750 ELO here in this time control. So we're looking for a game within that rating range. So we have another 1600 we're playing against here as white, and we'll play e4, knight f3, looking for our classic Lopez setup here. Very classic game. And we have the old Steinitz defense. And usually what I like to play against the old Steinitz defense is d4 here. So let's go ahead and play d4. And we have bishop to d7 here, supporting this knight so it doesn't pend here. It's a little bit passive in this position, but it is a book move. Let's play knight to c3, almost completing development of our pieces here. And this tactically is still fine, this trade here, because we have two defenders of this bishop here. So if knight takes, queen takes, we will still have defense of this piece here. So queen to f6, and my instinct tells me this is not too accurate of a move here because the queen is moving out early. It's not a book move that I remember. And it's kind of blocking the development of his knight and maybe even his bishop here. I mean, he could still fianchetto it. But instinct tells me this is wrong, and there may be a way to try to punish it straight out right now. Bishop to e3 is probably a fine move. And we could also, another possibility is trading and doubling pawns here. Then playing a move maybe like bishop to e3. But I think keeping pieces on the board is decent right now. So let's play bishop to e3. Kind of keeping pieces on the board, not converting any advantages quite yet, because I like the fact that black is behind in development here, and maybe we'll be able to use our development advantage for an attack even. So we have knight to h6, threatening. I mean, I guess it threatens like knight to g4 here. But otherwise, this knight is kind of goofily placed. So a prophylactic move like h3 catches my eye. I believe trading it for our bishop would be heinous, because queen takes, and then we're losing our development advantage here. So I think h3, and another reason, it's prophylactic first of all, but you could even like go for like g4, threatening g5, like a fork on these pieces here. Would be one of the reasons to play h3. So I like actually h3, and we could, especially if white castles this way, we could use the like goofy placement of these pieces a little bit to start and initiate an attack here. And remember, knight takes doesn't tactically work. We have queen to g6, threatening the g2 pawn. We could still play g4 is a possibility. I like queen f3 here, just defending the pawn, and now it leaves it open as to which side we're going to castle. So it's a very flexible move. Doesn't commit our pawns too early. And also it adds another defender to the square here. And none of these tactics work yet, so I like queen f3. Is pretty, in my mind, is kind of non-committal. And I think if white goes for the castle here, whichever way black goes to castle, I think he's going to encounter problems, because castle this way, we can take here and ruin his pawn structure. And castling this way, we can use these pieces, maybe even castle queenside, to add to our attack here. So now we have h6. We can drop back. A6, excuse me, wrong side of the board. We can drop back to a4, continuing this pin here. We could also like drop back to d3. I think we have a lot of excellent options. We could even take and just ruin this pawn structure outright. But now my instinct is like, we're probably going to castle queenside. And so I kind of like the idea of maintaining essentially the tension here until black makes a decision as to where they're going to castle. So now a6, I think it's even worse because he's moving pawns if he wants to castle queenside. So I'll just let that like be up to him. And I'll play bishop to a4, kind of maintaining the tension here. And yeah, so now we have b5. He's getting a little bit berserk here, maybe. But we have bishop to b3. I'm calculating this knight sacrifice, but let's see. And the merit of the knight sacrifice is that after this, there will be a revealed attack on the rook. But I think bishop b3 is also very solid here. Okay, we have knight to e5 is a little bit annoying, but he's also not targeting many other key things besides our queen here. So how we want to deal with this, we could even sacrifice this pawn here. I think would actually not be a terrible way to play the position. Sacrifice the g2 pawn and castle queenside. And although he has like an attack on, I think our pressure, I guess, in the center of the board is going to be, my instinct tells me it's going to be more devastating for black to deal with here. So I think queen to e7, sacrificing the pawn, we will castle. And then look to open the center, since black's king remains in the center here. And we're also blocking this knight jump in here. Sacrificing the pawn, castle. That is my planned follow-up to this, to him taking on g2, because a pawn isn't worth a pawn can easily be compensated by activity in the opening, especially. So I think the fact that our pieces are much better developed here than black's speaks to the fact that this will somehow work in our favor here. If that makes sense. Maybe that doesn't make sense at all, but just like the feeling I get of this in this position is that white is totally like about to crush black. And one of the moves I'm seeing that initiates just this utter crushing is f4. And what's the point of f4? Well, one of the principles of chess is that when the king is like stuck in the center here, which it basically is, unless he wants to castle queenside and get like obliterated here, it's that when the king is stuck in the center, you want to open files towards the center. So one way we can do that, or attempt to do that, is e5 here. So we're directly like opening up this, or attempting to open up if black cooperates here. And if he doesn't cooperate, say we push, he pushes, I think he's just losing this pawn. And if he takes, remember we're still guarded this piece twice even. So I think e5, we're breaking it, we're attempting to break open the center here. Get a open file, or open files we can use to eye the king here. So now we have a couple of open files here. We can take the knight first so he cannot recapture. However, he's eyeing this rook. So let's see if we can puzzle piece our way into a victory here. This does not work because it's guarded 3 times. We can go rook to g1, hitting the queen. Does his queen have anywhere useful to go? But it might run into knight takes. I think knight taking here is fine because he's just pinned. He's just pinned if we go something like this. So now he has chosen to castle queenside here, and I think knight takes b5. My intuition is just telling me that's like a devastating threat here, just removing one of the pawns. And then if takes, we get our queen in here. And if takes, we have like, we don't have this check because it's queen guards from the other side of the board. We can play queen f3, looking at spying this diagonal here is one way we could play it. But my intuition tells me knight takes b5 is pretty devastating. I think adding pressure to this diagonal is one of the most solid approaches I can see in this position, because knight takes runs into just queen, runs into queen a8 checkmate, as I was just about to explain. So, and then we could have even like accumulated pressure along this diagonal here. So 18 moves. Let's analyze this game. Maybe I didn't play it. I think one of the keys to that game was like remaining flexible in a lot of those different like a lot of those different moves were flexible. Maybe I should have committed myself to an attack a little bit early, but his king was still in the center here. So e4, e5, the king's pawn opening, classic, and then we have the Ruy Lopez. Ruy Lopez old Steinitz defense. So I like to play d4 as a book move. You can play against that. You can also play knight c3. You could probably play even other moves like c3. Knight c3 is another book move. And up until this point is all book until queen f6 hits the board. So bishop e3, yeah, is, the engine agrees, it's like very flexible here. It's just, I want to, I guess, maintain material on the board because I know, like, if I could have converted my advantage here with just exchanging and doubling his pawns. But the reason that I wanted to keep material on the board is now because of the queen f6. I'm thinking, well, now black is going to be behind in development here. This knight capture, I mean, we could even now capture the bishop, forcing his king to be permanently caged in the center unless he like manually castles. But so now queen f6 is kind of just like, you're kind of just hampering your own development here, and you have to develop the knight to a goofy square. Yeah, I guess knight d5 is already devastating here, jumping into the center. But h3 is also a very solid approach to this position, and it's what it is prophylaxis combined with, prophylaxis is the idea of stopping your opponent's threats, right? So it's stopping the threat of knight to g4, which would maybe threaten to take the bishop and double pawns and open this file. But it's stopping the threat, but it's also maybe threatening g4, g5, just like using this goofy placement of pieces here to start an attack on the king side, especially if he would have gone bishop to e7 and castle. I think g4 and g5 would hit like a truck there. But anyway, we have the interesting move, queen to g6 here, and the point is he's threatening this pawn. And yeah, I could have gone for this sacrifice idea like already here, like queen e2, castles, like queen e2 takes, castles, and then like you're threatening to get your rook in there. But I went queen f3. I think it's still pretty flexible here. I'm just like maintaining my options. And then I see he's pushing a6. And the feeling I'm getting here is like he's shooting himself in the foot almost. Like all these moves he's playing. Yeah, exchanging is probably still very good because now you've doubled his pawns. Or if he takes with a bishop, like you've still doubled his pawns here. And he's going to have, like, he's going to be severely, I guess, discouraged from ever castling kingside, and he still has work to do if he wants to castle kingside here. Not to mention he's also running into the same ideas on this side of the board. So a6, I drop back to a4, trying to maintain the tension here. It does allow b5, but essentially b5 signals to me that castling is probably a really, really bad idea here for black to castle queenside. So we have knight to e5. I did allow the knight to e5 jump, which was probably not the wisest. And now, yeah, I sense that the best way to play the position was definitely queen e2, sacrificing the pawn on g2. And my intuition just told me that, like, after the queen is forced to move back with either like rook g1, we are now opening up the center using these tempi to open up the center of the board here. So we have queen takes, which is very much a blunder. I mean, he should not have accepted the sacrifice, definitely. Long castles. And now white is just like completely and utterly gonna crush black here. And this is f4, hits the board like a thunderclap, basically. Knight is moving away. And then, yeah, what did I do? I considered knight takes b5 here. No, I didn't consider it here. I considered it after he castled. But what did I play here? Let's just see. I played e5, yeah. Threatening to open up the center of the board. I guess maybe this is premature. Rook h to g1, it says, is very solid. Because now I have like queen f6 and we can play bishop to d5, just winning material here. But I'm playing this trying to attack his king already. So I play e5 because this is, whether he likes it or not, pretty much this is opening up some sort of file that I can use to attack his king, which is still trapped in the center. And now he doesn't have time, basically, to get his bishop out and castle because of the squeeze I'm putting on him, like the pressure I'm putting on him. With most of these moves are coming with tempo here, which means that he's reacting to a lot of these moves. So, yeah, taking on d4. I mean, I could have taken on c6 and then played like rook g1, saving this rook here because it hits the queen with tempo. Queen f6, and now like bishop to d5, and after an exchange my knight gets in there and he's just like, it just looks crushing. And there's a lot of ways, I guess I should say, to win positions like this. But I take on e5, certainly not the most accurate, and then long castles. And this is basically just prolonging black's game here, because he got his king out of the center, but now we are hitting him on the queen side, which he has already weakened for us with moves like a6 and b5. So yeah, in this position was the position I was considering a knight sacrifice. Probably this knight would certainly be better to take with, and the engine agrees, because now this tension here is relieved, and after like this, a move like queen takes wouldn't come with this double attack. And you can also take with this knight as well. But I didn't play it. I played a more safe move. I think I played queen f3, which is playing along this diagonal here towards his king. And yeah, the thing is, if he takes this knight, which he did, it runs into, if you calculate one move ahead, which basically, if you're taking a piece, you have to always remember it requires calculation. You're no longer playing like strategically almost all the times when you're taking a piece. You're playing tactically when you take a piece. That means you have to calculate the opponent's move after you take. Is he going to recapture? Or you look at how the board changed and you see the other stronger threats the opponent might have. So yeah, knight takes runs into mate in 1. But also this is just piling on like more threats here, because like knight to f5, because it's supported twice here. e6 is crushing. Wow. Just like insisting. It's, first of all, it's disconnecting the bishop from the defense of this knight. Now we have like complicated tactics here, because this comes with tempo because it's a check. And now something like this will just win material. Bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes, because he cannot take back with this knight because of the same pin here we got going. Yeah, very nice. So, I mean, even if he defended correctly after this move, it's very hard for black to get out of this. Like now, rook g1 hits the board, queen has to move probably. I mean, it's just engine just saying like sacrifice the queen, but there's just too many threats that black has to deal with at this point, among checkmate being one of them, and he just fell right into our play there with checkmate. So that concludes pretty much the game review. We can look at and explore the Steinitz, the old Steinitz defense, which is different from, let's say, like I think it's called the modern Steinitz defense, yeah, where they play a6 first, and there's a lot of different types of Steinitz defense. Like there's even the knight f6 castles and like d6 here, which is called the improved Steinitz defense. There's like the improved Steinitz defense, the modern Steinitz defense, the old Steinitz defense. And a lot of times, like for any one of those, the move is d4 here, just opening up the center and using the fact that d6 is not like as, it's a little bit more passive of a move than black's other moves in the opening. So d6, d4, and then bishop to e7 is the purpose of it is it removes the pin. And you can take here a lot of the times is a good move to play in the Steinitz defense, but usually you want to prepare it. And remember that this tactically still works. You might say, oh, like after he takes the knight, aren't you like revealing an attacker here? Yes, but you still have another defender of the bishop here with the knight on c3. So usually black will not play this tactically. They will try to play it more strategically with like, yeah, g6, bishop g7, or knight f6. Queen f6 is probably the point where the book moves stop happening in this game. But knight f6 is a move you'll see a lot of the times. And now I think in this position, exchanging is the best idea here for white. Or, yeah, it's the best long-term idea that the engine likes. And the idea of this is you're actually playing this very double-edged. You're playing like bishop f4, and you're moving your queen up, and then you're actually castling long here, because black will most likely castle kingside here because of the ruined pawn structure on the queen side, and you're playing what's called an opposite side castling game, where you are castled on the queen side and your opponent is castled on the king side, and you're just using these pawns in like this open side of the board to try to pawn storm your opponent before he can get adequate counterplay on your queen side here. And he does have like this open file on the b file to help his attack on the queen side. So the positions like this can be very double-edged. For example, like bishop f4, probably bishop e7, queen d2, castles. I'll let the engine load, but yeah, castles is fine, and then castles. And now you're playing a very double-edged game, because black most likely is they could use this file here to attack your queen side. So So for example, c5, your knight can either drop back to b3 or to f3, and it depends basically in what way you want to play this. You can go knight f5 as well, which kind of ruins your pawn structure after bishop takes, but you're getting a bishop in exchange for the knight. I would probably, go knight b3. Knight f3 kind of gets in the way of like your pawns, would be my only consideration. And knight b3 also can help defend this queen side here if they are to throw pieces on this file or a pawn down the board, for instance. So knight b3. Yeah, a5, just throwing pawns down this board. But then you have tactics here. Kick this knight away first because it provides another defender. And this line gets a little bit tactical here. But essentially the idea is you're playing an opposite side castling game, and maybe even looking to convert this into like an end game where you have the advantage because your opponent has these weak or weaker pawns on the queen side of the board. So I hope that video was a little bit instructive. It was kind of a weird way to play the Steinitz defense, I guess, but I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next one.